Find something you're interested in. If you like swords, if you like whatever your vibe is, and you may have to try a bunch of them and go check them out. Here's what I can say to all those boys. I've never had the courage to walk into a martial arts school, and I'm one of the baddest on the planet. It takes a lot of courage to go do it. It takes something special inside. Like you got to be going, I need something here. It's a place where you'll find it. It will change your life.
Let's go!
Hello, Frank. Welcome to Fika with Rice. I'm so excited to have you on the show. Frank, the legend, Shamrock, is a mixed martial artist from the US, entrepreneur and philanthropist. Frank was the first one to hold the UFC Middleweight Championship and retired as the fourth-time defending undefeated champion and the number one ranked UFC fighter in the world during his reign. He was named the Fighter of the Decade during the 1990s. And I want to start this episode with some rapid fire questions, Frank. It's a tradition here at Fika with Rice. It goes like this. I'll make a statement and then you'll finish the sentence. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. Okay. If I could go back to my 20-year-old self, I would tell him.
Strengthen your core.
Okay. All right. Okay. The biggest mistake I made when I was young was.
I didn't ask enough questions.
When I grew up, my biggest dream was.
I wanted to be a world champion.
The most common mistake grappling beginners make.
They don't breathe.
You're just going through these really easily, Frank.
Yeah, they don't breathe. I've taught martial arts for 25 years. It's the exact same thing. Nobody breathes and then they continue on in their life and no one breathes in their life. And then they're all stressed out.
I need to dig deep on this. Is that something that was a late realization that you just realized like when you became older, or was this something that when you were 22, you were like, well, nobody breathes?
I learned it when I was 20, probably about 22, when I first started training martial arts, because I didn't know anything about martial arts or sports or anything. And I just walked into a dojo and started training. I just started noticing that when you breathe, you create more energy. And I went down the study of breath, which is how much breathing is, controls our life, our moods, our emotion. Like, when we're babies, we breathe with 100% of our lungs. By the time we're in our 30s, we're down to, 20, 30% capacity if we're not an athlete. So just the fact of breathing properly, and especially in martial arts, if you want to create energy, be energy, move energy, it starts and ends with a breath. And nobody teaches you that in martial arts. And they should.
I agree. On a side note, I just read a book a few months ago. Can't remember the first name because there are so many Graces out there. It's called Breathe or Breath.
Oh, yeah. Is that Hickson's?
Yes, Rickson Gracie.
Yeah, I think I saw that.
And it's amazing, how he used breathing to literally like level up his game and level up his life, so to speak.
It is, because it's also the basis of good meditation and relaxation. So if you don't have control of your breath, you don't have control of your mind, you don't have control of your heart, and literally the systems just kind of break down anytime it's under stress. So and for me, the breathing came from the technical side, because I was like, wow, this creates air and energy. And then once I would try to sleep at night, knowing there's a cage fight tomorrow, the breathing became a tool to, calm my energies and to, deeper my meditation and control over my own mind. But in the beginning, it was creating energy.
Did somebody teach you about meditation and breathing before like a cage fight? Did they ask no?
Sadly, in my era, there was no knowledge. So no, I was a 22-year-old man standing backstage and watching grown men do no rules cage fighting in the early UFC. And I thought, this is absolutely crazy. There's no regulation. These guys were not athletes. They were bare knuckle slugging each other. And I was seeing the after effects. I was in the locker rooms. So I was seeing the guys come back with their faces, flayed apart and just broken. And I was like, this is horrible. And I swore I would never do it. But I also knew that that's where the evolution of sport was going. So I knew at some point I would be doing that, most likely. And that was something I never, ever wanted to do or thought about doing. So it took a long time for me to accept that, bring that energy to a controllable state, sleep at night, be comfortable in my own skin. All that came through just self-exploration, breathing, meditation. Nobody teaches it. They all should. I'm sure they do now that the sport's developed and they have, coaches for that. But yeah, I would go to my locker room, check in, go to my room, meditate, sleep for an hour, wake up, stretch, warm up, fight my fight, and go home.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Because I was a soldier on a mission, and it was incredibly risky and dangerous. And all the tools were there to make it so that I could perform and, be comfortable.
I've been reading a lot, and apparently the samurais were very, very big and deep into meditation.
Here's the thing. Most people will never risk their life, so they'll never know what it takes mentally to get in that state. Firefighters do it. Cops do it. People don't do it. People that experience that, they instantly jump to the next level because their brains open up.
Yeah.
People that consciously go into those situations, they either are prepared or they get broken, or they don't make it. And I had my moment in 1998 where I honestly thought I was going to die while fighting. I was like, oh, this is it. I'm going to die. And I'd never had that thought before. Never considered it, never entered my mind. In that moment, I was like, this is the moment. And most people look away and they go, oh, this is it. And I went, nope, never going to happen to me. And I got up and I ended up knocking them out, winning. But just the mental shift, it took that mental shift of me looking at it and going, all right, this is where I'm going to die. And then me going, I'm not going to die today. And stepping over that, edge. Most people will never make the step. So they just, this is unfortunate. But meditation, breathing, training, visualization, all those tools are the mechanics so that I can go do the stuff. Without those mechanics, I'd just be a scared, abused kid out there trying to do my thing.
Who did you fight just by curiosity in 1998 when this happened?
That was Ensign Inoue.
Okay.
And that was actually my qualifier fight to be in the UFC. So the winner of that fight would then go on to fight for the Middleweight Championship.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So it's either I turned away and then I lost and that was the end of my career, or I decided I was going to risk my life and go for it. And my career went the other direction.
The most common mistake martial artists make?
I would say the most common mistake martial artists make is they stop learning.
I've heard that a lot too. Once they get their black belt, they're like, they start to breathe and they're like, okay, I made it, so to speak. But
and
then they don't think about all the other people behind them that want to submit them.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. And I figured it out when I became a champion, and I had a great coach who was, I came with the belt and I was all happy and excited and celebrating. And he sat me down and he said, great, now the work begins. I go, what do you mean? Because now you're the champ. Everyone in the world is studying you and watching you.
Yeah.
They're all coming for you. It's like, now you don't rest. Now you train. I was like, oh no, but that's the reality. You get to the top and then you prepare.
The best advice I received was
be truthful.
Who told you that?
My adopted.
Yes,
my adopted dad.
You adopted. Okay.
Yeah.
And do you remember how old you were when they told you that?
13 years old. I was in a group home. I'd been in tons of trouble. So I was in my, last group home before youth prison. And Bob was a, well-known figure for turning boys around. So I ended up at his boys ranch and I gave him my, sob story and my song and dance and all the other, half-truth stories that I'd worked up at that age. And he just looked at me right in the eye and he said, yeah, we don't do lies and bullshit. And he never cursed. So he was like, this was big for him to say bullshit. He goes, we don't know. He goes, that's it. You won't be successful without the truth. That's what he told me. You won't be successful without the truth. And I said, okay. And I didn't listen, went to prison, screwed my life up, did everything he told me not to do, but he stuck by my side. And when I got out, I followed everything he told me and been truthful ever since.
I have a few questions about that, but I have a last one for the rapid fire. It's my advice to all 18-year-olds out there.
Get into martial arts.
Does it matter which one? Do you have
Doesn't matter. It's not about the art. It's about the community and the culture and the lessons and what it does for you inside personally. It's not about the art. Doesn't matter what you study. It's about the process of developing yourself with other people in a community that is on a similar mission. That's what life's about. That's what everything's about. I literally got out of prison when I was 22 years old. I didn't have one person in this world, not one soul, except for Bob Shamrock. And, martial arts became my entire community around the world, millions of people, because I was on a mission and we all shared the same ideas and concerns and thoughts, and we're on the same journey. From that journey, I have a family and a community and millions of people. And, before that, I was in prison. So it's the only thing that I know that will give you that community, that texture and that self-development of what you want. Everything I wanted, I've accomplished. Everything, period. End of story. Everything I've ever written down in a notebook, journal, wish, dream, I've accomplished it, and I've accomplished it because of martial arts.
What would you tell to those 18-year-olds that want to try martial art? They're listening right now to Fika with Rise. They want to try. They're excited, but they're afraid. They have a lot of fear inside, especially a lot of both young boys and girls. Like, well, I might get hurt. I don't know. I'm not fit, etc., and etc.
Doesn't matter. Whatever you like. What I tell everybody is find something you're interested in. If you like swords, if you like knuckles, whatever your vibe is, and you may have to try a bunch of them and go check them out. Here's what I can say to all those boys. I've never had the courage to walk into a martial arts school, and I'm one of the baddest motherfuckers on the planet. It takes a lot of courage to go do it. Yeah. And it takes something special inside. Like you got to be going, I need something here. It's a place where you'll find it. That's all I can say.
Oh, that's deep, Frank. Because it's true. You're one of the baddest people on earth, and you're saying that you didn't have the courage to go to a martial arts school or gym.
Nope. It takes a bit of courage, but it will change your life. And if you don't like it, go to another school. Because people that teach martial arts, they really care about people's development. They care about people. They want them to learn this important knowledge. It's touched their life and it's a pass on. So, and then here's what I do. If you can't afford martial arts, my mom would have never been able to put me in martial arts ever. Like it just wasn't a thing. So I tell everybody, you can't afford martial arts, show up with a broom, show up with a rag, and explain that you'll do anything to learn that craft. And 9 times out of 10, that man will let you in his gym and let you clean and let you start learning because he knows how important it is. Because that's what I would do.
Yeah.
But you got to want it, and you got to show up, and you got to be ready to clean some toilets. Yeah. I cleaned a lot of toilets. When I started, I was the beating boy and the bag boy. So because I had all these muscles in prison, they liked to beat me up because I was strong. So they would try all the techniques on me, beat me like a toy. And then I would go clean all the gear, clean all the mats, and clean the dojo. That's how I started.
Oh, wow. That happened after you came out?
Yeah.
From prison?
Yeah, because when I came out, we were in the pancrase system. And pancrase is a traditional Japanese dojo. So you start as a young boy. And young boys serve. You don't do anything but serve until you become more than a young boy. And that's when your first fight happens. So for 8 months, I was a young boy. I got beaten every day. I got to the gym early. I cleaned the gym. I massaged all the fighters. I wiped everyone's down. I cleaned all the gear. I cleaned the gym and I closed the gym.
Oh, wow.
Every day for 8 months.
What did that teach you about life?
It taught me the value of it. I would have, if I would have just walked in there and been given all of that, they would have had no value to me. That's why I tell people, if you go on this journey, you'll find it. Because I realized how valuable it was. It wasn't given to me. I was beaten. When I asked questions, I was beaten. I was like, what about this? They're like, nope, you don't ask questions. And I had to learn that, I'm just here to figure it all out. That's what we're doing in life. In that type of environment where you have someone looking out for you that cares for you and is guiding you, that's what it's about.
Didn't you ever feel like, why am I doing this? Like in month 4 or 5, whatever,
Oh, yeah.
Frank. Or, you know what is this? I'm just showing up. Everybody's beating me up. I'm feeling like shit. This is like, why am I doing this even? My life sucks.
Yeah. But it sucked before. I was in prison for 3.5 years.
Okay.
Before that.
So this was like better, or?
It was better. Yeah. Way better.
So it was better. Okay.
Better than being in prison. I mean, prison sucks. You don't get beat up all the time, but there's violence and it's unpleasant. This was way better, And then I also knew, by then I was 22. I have 23 felony convictions. I had been incarcerated at that time for about 10 years. So my prospects for a successful life and career were very, very low. In fact, if you look at my sheet now, it's very, very low because I was a terrible criminal and I paid for it. So I didn't have anything. I knew I didn't have anything, literally had nothing. And then I also had a young son. And I thought, how am I going to provide for my son when I have nothing, have screwed my life up, and I can't even get a job?
Yeah.
So, fighting was all there was.
What did being in prison teach about life? And what did you do in prison to keep your mind sharp and healthy?
Well, the first thing is, when I went to prison, I still didn't believe it was all happening, and I thought I could talk my way out of it. That's what had happened all the other times when I was a kid. But when I went to prison, it was all different, and it was clear I wasn't going to get out until 3.5 years had passed, and that was if I was good. So it was the first time in my life where I had real consequences for the actions I had done. And when there was, a timetable on it, like, great, you'll get out in 3.5 years. Good luck. And it was the first, time I was alone with myself. First time I had to, explore who I was, where I wasn't living on the streets and surviving and doing weird, crazy stuff. And I sat down, I realized I totally screwed my life up. There was people, a couple people who did care for me. And in particular, there was one man who loved me and cared for me, Bob Shamrock, and who was guiding me and giving me advice. And so I just started following all the advice he had told me, over the years. Lift weights, make yourself strong, build your mind, go to school. I went to college in prison. It was like me and one other dude in college classes. Because I really was like, I screwed my life up. Mm-hmm. And it's just what I want to do. And what made it crystal clear was I was standing on the yard looking out at the prison yard, and all my homies walked by, all the kids I was on the streets with, every kid I knew. They're like, hey, Frank. I'm like, oh my God, this is how it happens. And then you're in this system for the rest of your life. And so I just went, that can't be me. I'm not going to do that. And I changed my mind.
Did you meet Bob during your prison time, or was it before?
Before, yeah. I met him when I was almost 13. Then
okay,
I was at his group home for probably 1.5 years or so. Mm-hmm. Then I got in more trouble, and just kept carrying on. But he always stayed as a mentor and as a father figure too.
And so during your prison time, he was still giving you advice, so to speak, and he was the one telling you that you need to be going to college, and that's something that you can do to keep your mind healthy and keep it, basically saving your own self.
Yeah. He told me to, build yourself up, make yourself strong, build your mind, body, and spirit. So that's what I did. It was the mm-hmm. first time I'd really spent alone with myself. And speaking of 18-year-olds, spend some time alone with yourself, because I didn't know who I was until I sat with myself for 1 year or so. And then I was like, oh, wow, this is who I really am. And then what I did to change it is I literally wrote down all the things that I was. And I took a manila folder and I opened it up, and all the things that I was, I wrote down on the left-hand side. I was a criminal, and I was a cheat, and I was a scumbag, and I was a lousy dad, and I was a drug addict, and I was all these terrible things. And then on the right-hand side, I wrote down all the things that I was going to become and what all my dreams were. And I carried that manila folder with me from every prison mm-hmm. and every cell. And everything that I did to fill that back page and make those dreams come true, I put in that folder. So when I went to college, I put my grades and all my stuff in the folder, all my weightlifting routines, all my stuff that I was doing to build up my body, I put in the folder. And by the end of 3.5 years, that folder was enormous with all the things that I had done for myself. And then I looked at it when I got out and I was like, do I still want to be all those bad things that I was before? Or do I want to be this person on the right-hand side? And I chose that guy. And I decided I'd do whatever it took to do it, including fighting in a cage and everything else.
I love that system that you created, Frank. Was that something that Bob taught you, that, hey, Frank, you need to be going like in your cell tonight, you need to be doing this and this. You need to be writing down what you are, what you want to become. You need to be keeping a log of your training routine. Or where did this come from? Like this discipline?
I'm kind of a nerd, and I like to write and I like to read. And my brain works very mechanically. I can see things when people describe them in mechanical processes. Like my brain can literally see it. I just started writing and reading, and my brain just started, expanding and getting more useful. Unfortunately, there's nobody there to teach this stuff, and nobody was guiding it. But when you're alone, you kind of fall into some of this stuff. Like you go, why do I feel this way? Oh, we should think about that. Oh, let's go over there. And so there was a lot of that just self-realization, like, this is how I really am. And this is how I really feel. And then what do I do about that? And that is where I'd go lift weights, and I'd go, sit with guys and go read and go talk. And I'd be like, learn stuff. It's just the first time in my life where I got to be with myself and decide what I wanted to be. And then I was doing the work when that moment came along. Because I spent 3.5 years lifting weights. I spent 3.5 years learning. I spent like 3.5 years. That's a college, education.
It is.
I took that time in prison.
How did you get into books, Frank? Had you always been this nerd, although you were a bad kid?
Super nerd. Yeah. I was always crazy smart, and I loved to read. And then we didn't have TV in our house. So there wasn't television. It was reading. We read, or we went outside and we played. And I just loved to read. I set the school book report record in like the 7th grade or something. I did 100 book reports, like something ridiculous. And they were just blown away. But I would read 2 books a day. And a lot of it was because, I had social issues. I couldn't figure out what was going on with people. And I had too much emotionality and like too much instability. And it's because I had all this abuse and trauma and all these terrible things happen to me, but I never knew it. I just had trouble engaging and developing, relationships with people. And so I was alone. I'd always spend a lot of time alone, and I read, and I was a weird, nerdy kid.
What would you tell all the 20-year-olds out there listening right now, Frank, who has, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube? They have this like phone, like in their pockets, basically entertainment 24 hours a day, that might not necessarily like feel like they should be reading books, because they can just Google a book summary and they'll have that like in a minute or so. What would you tell them in order to encourage them to read more books?
Yeah, there's just something about just reading a book, just consuming it. For me, I grew up in a small farm town. Like I never saw anything but cows, and it was a weird, lived in a rural town. So every experience I'd ever had came from a book. Everything that ever happened in my life I'd experienced through a book. Now, when I became a champion, I traveled the world and I did all these things. I did all the stuff that's in those books. Here's the difference. It meant so much more to me and felt so vibrant and alive, and it felt so real in the book. I went to Rome. It felt better in the book. I went to all these places. It's better in the book because the written language is the hardest thing to communicate, to write. To write stuff is the hardest thinking there is. And to consume that expands your brain, period. Doesn't matter what you consume. If you consume crap, you'll expand your crappy brain. But if you put good, interesting knowledge in your brain, and the book form is very compelling, like it's really gets in there.
I agree.
So I say take a book, be a nerd, take a book. Nerds are going to rule the world, and
It's true.
read a book. Yeah.
I resonate a lot with you, in regards to that, Frank, because I grew up in Sweden. I don't know if you've ever been there, but in Sweden, there are not a lot of immigrants. And I think when I grew up, my parents, they worked in a factory. So basically, it's the lowest paying job you can imagine in Sweden back then. And nobody in my family had gone to university, college. And my mom told me when I was young that, you know what, Freddie, you need to be reading books, because that's where you're going to find your mentors and like inspiration, because we can't offer that. We don't know like wealthy or successful people who can like give you and teach you the ropes, so to speak. So study well, go to school, but read books, because that's where you're going to find basically a lot of inspiration, a lot of useful things for life.
I literally love to read, and I would read before I'd watch television.
Frank, you spoke a little bit about your childhood. I was doing homework before this show, and you grew up in various foster homes, until you met Bob. And I watched this incredibly emotional video from Goldcast the other day leading up to this. I was like, wow. I was showing my wife. I was like, this is amazing. Showing my team at Absolute Internship. I was like, this guy, like, it's gonna be an amazing show. Can you tell us, for those that haven't heard your story, like how your childhood was? I know you mentioned a little bit, but how was it, and how did that really shape you? Because you said you became like an introvert, you didn't know how to build relations and so on.
Yeah, I didn't know. I mean, when I was a kid, my first memories were just seeing psychiatrists, like seeing therapists. And I didn't know why I was there. I didn't really know what's going on. But it became quickly apparent that there was something wrong with me. And because every time I went to a new school, I had like a new therapist, and it was like a new thing. And there was always some social interaction that was not good. So I remember one time a kid pushed me and I completely freaked out on him and like, jumped him and like kicked his ass, because I felt threatened. And, but I didn't know any of this. I just was reacting. And then when I was 10 years old at my home, I was getting various, abuses and weird things were happening to me. But when I was 10, I threw rocks at a train. And in the state of California, that's a felony. So I was arrested when I was 10 years old and taken to juvenile hall. And I was charged with a felony. So when I was 11, I went to juvenile hall and I spent 10 days in juvenile hall when I was 11 years old. And, I'd run on the streets and I'd heard all the bad kids and I'd heard all the stuff about juvenile hall. So, it's a pretty rough place. But when I went there, everybody was lovely. Everybody was so nice. And so I was talking to all the kids and I'm asking about like how they deal with these things and what's going on in their world. And I was shocked that nobody else was being locked in a closet and living in the tool shed and like all these things that were happening to me. And so I went to my counselor and I said, hey, this is what's happening. And, it doesn't seem right. And, she didn't really pick up on it, but she said something that I really remember. She said, if you keep doing stuff like this, they'll take you from your home, period. And I was like, that's what stuck in my brain. And so I went home and I just was like, this is how I get out of my home. And so I kept committing crimes. They ended up taking me out maybe 3 or 4 months later. And then I became a ward of the state of California. And so I moved to foster homes and group homes and I started living in that system. I didn't mind it, actually. It was better than my home. I didn't know. I didn't even know until my late 30s all the stuff that had happened to me because no one ever told me. And it's been wiped from my memory. But, just really horrible shit happened to me. And I didn't know how to act and react in the world. And so whenever I went somewhere, it was always problematic, every group home. So I kept moving up in security because every time you get in trouble, they move you to the next level of security. Unbeknownst to me, it was getting worse and worse and worse. The end of the line was Bob Shamrock's Boys Ranch. That's the end of the line. Then you go to juvenile youth prison. And so I ended up there. And his biggest blessing in my life, he was the first man to ever, be a man to me, be a father to me, keep his word. And, that's why those things are important to me. That meant a lot to me that a man would stop his world, give me that advice, stand by it, and then prove that, that's how things are.
How did you get into martial arts? Frank? Because you said earlier, obviously, how you got into the dojo, but how did you start to train? Because Bob told you to train your body and your mind, but did Bob basically teach you martial arts then? Or
nope. No, it didn't. When I went to prison, the sport we were doing didn't exist. When I got out of prison, it was an emerging sport. And in Japan, there was already the pancrase circuit and a few other circuits. So when I was in Folsom, it would have been 1993, Bob sat me down. I was just almost about to get out. I was in Folsom prison. And he said, hey, new sport's coming. And there's all this opportunity. Okay. and he sold it like it was wrestling. We didn't have TV, so we didn't know that the UFC had started. Like, we didn't know this stuff was happening. We only, we're in prison. So he sits down and says, I said, there's a new wrestling. It's like wrestling, but it's tougher and you could do it. And he gives me like a pitch, like it's a new sport, a wrestling sport.
Okay.
So I didn't even know what it was. I didn't know you could tap. My first day, when I did my tryout, I didn't even know you could tap. I didn't know it existed. I had zero information. So I said yes. I kept training. And then when I got out, Bob dropped me off at my brother's dojo, Ken Shamrock's Lion's Den. And I did my tryout and that was it. And I was on the team. Yeah. And that's how I started. I had I'd never done real sports, or I had no martial arts education. I knew nothing about martial arts. I think I'd taken Taekwondo or something when I was 7 at the community center or something. That was it. Yeah.
Basically, it was a way for you to make a living, I guess. Like try to make a living.
I saw it pretty much as my only option. Really. Yeah. It was going to be a fighter, and Bob did have another option. My brother had also done stripping. I was very successful at that. So he's like, hey, you could be a stripper or a fighter. Those are your 2 options, because that's what he knew.
Oh, man. I was like,
I'm probably not going to be a stripper, Dad, but I'll try the fighting thing. And so that was it. And I was big and I was strong. I spent 3.5 years lifting weights. So when I got out, I was 195 pounds of pure, solid, clean muscle. And most people don't walk around like that.
No.
That was a monster.
How were you able to get like enough food for your body?
Prison. Well, here's your tip. If you ever go to prison, you have to work in the kitchen.
Okay, I see. So you worked in the kitchen?
Kitchen in every prison I was in, because they have access to the food.
I see. Okay. And how did you know what to eat, so to speak? Or did you have that knowledge back then? Well, I need to be eating clean, so to speak.
Unfortunately, in prison, you just eat whatever you can.
Yeah. It's okay. Yes.
Yeah. It's very, very low grade, low pro. Like it's low quality stuff, but you can overcome it with kind of quantity. Yeah. And so that's what I was able to do. That's why you work in the kitchen. You can always get the extras and you put stuff on the side. And so it became a whole lifestyle, because I had to feed the machine. So I had to work in the thing to do the machine to feed that.
Yeah, I understand. Okay.
Yeah, but it worked. I gained 30 pounds of muscle when I was in prison.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Frank, I watched your documentary on YouTube, Bound by Blood, for those that are listening, and you can watch it for free on YouTube, that you damaged a lot of relationships throughout your successful career. For those young people out there listening, what advice would you give them in terms of fostering your relationships and building them, nurturing them, in order to not repeat the same mistake as you?
You know what? I would say forgive yourself and forgive others. That's it. Because people that really care about you, they'll be like, dude, sorry. Like, oops, you're right. People that don't will be like, F off. But people that really care will be like, hey, man, hey. And I've too many times turned away and been like, forget about it. Because that's what happened to me when I was a kid. People were like, they shoved me away. That's been a huge detriment to me, because anybody who invests in another person, that's value. That's love. And, you should lead with forgiveness. And if it doesn't work, then find another friend. Don't hold it inside, because that's what'll make you alone, and that's what'll make people not want to be with you.
You credit martial arts. Earlier we spoke of martial arts. for saving your life. And we spoke about life lessons through martial arts too. What are some of the top life lessons that you have learned and you have drawn from martial arts or being a martial artist that you would like to pass on to the audience?
Biggest lesson I've learned first is discipline. So that was a big one for me. I had no discipline. Martial arts gave me that. And when I say discipline, I mean, I train in martial arts every day, whether I do it with my body or my mind or my spirit. I'm still doing the same training because it's for me. And the minute it's for somebody else, it falls apart. And that happened to me on my journey. I got so big and so valuable that it started to be for everybody else. And then I was like, well, this is not fun. But if it's for you, if it's what you want and your mission's clear, that's what it does. Discipline. And then the thing I was missing in my life was honor. I didn't honor myself. I didn't love myself.
What does that mean, Frank, that you didn't honor yourself?
I didn't honor myself. I didn't treat myself well. I wasn't kind to me. I didn't speak good to me. I didn't take care of me. I helped other people. I did things, but I didn't honor myself. So then when it came to honoring other people, I was challenged. How can I honor other people when I don't honor myself? Truthfully, I don't love myself. How can I love another person and be kind to them and do all these things? And so through martial arts, I learned first to honor my teacher and the system and the community and find my love there. But the big value was I learned to honor myself. I learned to love myself and go, okay, if that's the mission and this is what's required to do it, and these are the reasons why, let's go do it. Like, I'm worth it. Let's do this thing. And that simple shift of just, honoring myself and honoring my teachers. And I always had the respect because I learned the respect through beatings. So the respect was quite easy.
Frank, I'm listening to you and I feel, and I mean, I'm hearing, that you're extremely self-aware and you're very self-reflective. Where do you think that has come from? Because, I speak to a lot of people. I would say a lot of people are not self-aware. A lot of people are not self-reflective,
I spend a lot of time with myself. And I spend a lot of time.
Do you still do that? No.
Yeah. I mean, I love being with people and I enjoy my relationships and stuff, but I genuinely enjoy sitting and thinking deeply. I genuinely enjoy sitting in the shade and just listening to nature and like being myself and being calm and just being relaxed. Like, I think, so many of us are running around and we're just caught up in this energy of life. And for me, it was survival. Like, I was literally stealing and eating to survive. But for many people, they're just surviving. And, it's crazy advice, but I always tell people, oh, you need time? Go to prison. You have all the time in the world to be with yourself and really either fall in love with yourself or realize you don't like that. Like, be real with you and then do something about it. Like, good, bad, whatever. Like, at least do something, because most people just go, oh, I feel this way and this is how I think. And then that's the end of it. And it just keeps looping. Even in prison sucks, but we had a community. We lifted weights. We hung out. We all shared something. We all were together. We were all doing our time, but we found our group. We had valued things to give and share with each other. And because I was the crazy nerd, I had the most in the weightlifting area. This is what I learned. But Bob Shamrock used to send me bodybuilding books and nutrition books. Like, he really was into the bodybuilding. So I really fell in love with it and studied it. And I think that was a huge value to me. I know it was a huge value to me when I started studying martial arts, because I understood the biomechanics of the body better than the average martial arts guy did.
I mean, I work with a lot of young people, Frank, 20-year-olds, 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, and so on. And I see and I witness that they have a very hard time to be alone. If they are alone, they are always with their computer, their iPad, or their phone, whether they're sitting in a park, whether they're sitting in a room alone, whatever. What's your best advice to a young person who wants to try this? Like, hey, I would like to be like Frank. I would like to spend a little bit more time alone and try to get to know myself better. What are some 2-3 tips that you could give to someone like that?
Yeah, the easiest way to be alone when you haven't been alone is to add some type of physical activity to it, because it will
Okay.
disassociate your aloneness and it will help connect your mind and your body.
So you're
So,
not staring in the wall, basically.
yeah. So I tell everyone to start, go for a nice long walk.
Okay.
No music, just walk and think. And it's the best, it's literally the best, cheapest, easiest, fastest. I have corporate executives do this, I have kids do this. It's just, if you just break the noise, stop the energy, and then connect your mind and your body, the whole thing reboots and is better. Bill Gates walks every day. It's where he thinks of all of his stuff. Like all these big thinkers, they walk and they think, because there's this relaxation where your mind and your body are working together. That's the best. Second best is to find something like martial arts or surfing or something that connects your mind, your body, and your spirit. Like something that is challenging for your spirit, socially, physically, like somewhere that tests you, moves you, or encourages you. Because then you're not in here, you're in here doing something. You're in your heart.
Yeah.
And then then when you're done, you just feel amazing. I do all of those things before I sit down and try to meditate, and before I try to, go to the next space, because the next space is you got to get rid of all that white noise and slow everything down so you can, get a nice feel going. I'd start with that. Walk. If you're really anxious, run. I hike because I can't walk fast and I can't run. So I hike up mountains. That's what I do. No sound, no nothing. I just hike right up a mountain. But the exertion of that, the mind, the body, the spirit, everything it takes being in nature, I get done. I feel amazing, like a new human being. Totally free.
You can't run, Frank. Is it because of your knees or?
No. I broke my back when I was, I think I was maybe 10. I think just before I left home, I fell off my roof, my 2-story roof, and I broke one of the vertebrae in my spine. So before I ever did sports, when I was 16, my right leg went numb and it started dragging behind me. I went and saw a doctor and he said, "You've broken your spine. You need spinal surgery. You're never going to play sports, contact sports, and you're going to be in pain for the rest of your life." That's what he told me.
That's horrible.
Yeah. And I said, "Yeah, I don't know about that. I have this dream about being a professional athlete and a world champion."
So do you still have pain in your back? Just by
every day of my life. Yeah.
Oh,
every day of my life. Still broken. The only way to fix it, I'd have to be in a body cast for a year.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, no, that's not going to happen.
Yeah. Oh my God. I have a lot of respect for you, Frank.
There's no year where I intend to spend in a body cast. Yeah. Yeah. So it just is what it is. But yeah, it's constant pain. But like I said, the hiking is the perfect angle that works the muscles that are necessary to keep that region good. And so, but if I run, it's too much and it unbalances. I'm an old guy. When you're young, you don't have to worry about too much of that stuff. Anything that gets your heart going, lets your mind relax. And if there's elements around you that are relaxing or calming, that's the best thing. And then my next level is I want to surf. Like I want to go out and, have nothing but the ocean and some roaring wave and be terrified and try to balance on a stick.
I know that feeling.
Yeah, I know for certain that my mind won't be thinking about stuff then.
It is true. It's exhausting to surf. You're like, oh my God, I have to swim out now. You're
like fighting the ocean and everything else. But the point is, those are fun, cool, great activities. We're not in here doing circular, negative, unpleasant, unproductive thinking. Out there, you're going, yay. And then when you come back, everything's fresh. So those thoughts that you wanted, those creative ideas, they're going to be right there waiting for you. Those action, triggers are going to be right there after you get rid of all the stuff.
I resonate a lot with that. For those that are listening, Frank, I love waking up early. Now I have a daughter who's just 6 months old. But
wow, congratulations.
Thank you, Frank. But I like to wake up early, bike, to the gym, train, just it's very quiet in the morning in the gym. And there I do my thinking, And I think, what some of my greatest ideas come like when I'm in the gym training, whether it's just lifting weights or training jiu-jitsu. So obviously jiu-jitsu is with other people, it's more social, but it is true. Spending time alone is extremely underrated.
Yeah. I think it's super valuable. And, like I said, if you don't know yourself, how are you going to know other people?
Yeah. You have a daughter, Nicoletta.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
What type of father do you aspire to be for her?
My job is to be the craziest and most available dad on the planet. Yeah, I just love her. My son's 33, so he's a grown man. And having my son was one of the biggest catalysts to me getting my life together. And when I was in prison, I was like, how am I going to, this is terrible. I got to get my shit together. And I had that wonderful experience with him as a boy. But having a daughter as a man is one of the most beautiful and wonderful things that you can ever experience. And it's totally shifted my, perspective on just being a man. So I really enjoyed that part. And then I know my job. My job is to raise her up, teach her to be a great woman and a good person, and then, so she can run off and do her thing. But yeah, I just love it. It's been wonderful.
Very nice.
Yeah.
You're retired now, Frank, obviously. You still walk, you give motivational speeches at Google Campus and other prestigious companies. What else do you do now, Frank?
Yeah, I'm mainly focused on my leadership program. We call it the Warriors Code. And I've been testing it like 5 years now, actually. The hard thing for me is I've never sat in an office ever in my life. I don't know what corporate people do. It makes no sense to me. But I understand cultures and I understand, leadership and team building. I understand how to do all the mechanics of it, but I've never actually hung out with them. So what I've done for the past 5 years is hang out with them because I'm like, I get all the problems, but I don't understand why we keep doing all this stuff. And so now I understand why we're doing it all and I understand the problems. So we've been rolling out our corporate leadership program. And I just love it because most of these people have never experienced martial arts. So they don't even, they're like, no, that's how they would never walk into a martial arts school. And now they're walking into mine and they're leading all these people. And so why I love it is I know when they go back and lead their people, they're leading them with the martial arts principles that I've just coached them with. So whether the, people at Google know it or not, they're learning martial arts.
That's beautiful.
And it's going to help them. And that to me is like
without doubt
the big win. Yeah. So that's what I'm really focused on. And I brought, I just stole my best friend from Google. Her name's Anne. She retired from Google and she's going to run it for me because she actually is a corporate executive and knows all the stuff. I know all the mechanics and I know all the, I know how things work theoretically. So I'm super excited about that. And then, speaking of martial arts, we do run a martial arts program through our charity. And it's for anybody who can't afford martial arts and anybody who's had trouble in their life. So similar to me, usually this is delivered directly to juvenile halls. So I go into juvenile halls and institutions, tell my story. These are all to kids under 18. And if you raise your hand and you communicate with me, I'll pay for your martial arts training.
Are there a lot of kids that raise their hands or they're too shy?
We usually get one or two out of a batch of 20 or 30. Most of them are too shy. I'd say about 10% of it does correspond though. And then out of that, we get another maybe 30% through the correspondence that then follow up. So like right now, we've probably got 20 kids across California doing martial arts. All the kids were incarcerated. All the kids were doing time when I saw them. And they were told when they get out and they have their shit together, they can contact me and the school they want to attend, and I'll take care of the rest.
Oh, that's amazing.
Congrats, that's what we've been doing. Yeah, so that's what we've been doing. And it's been really awesome because, many of these kids are like me. They got nothing. They got, little hope. But they're doing the work, and then we're just trying to help them with, with some of the tools.
Frank, it's been such an amazing experience speaking with you and getting to know you and your story more, and hearing your life lessons, which I'm sure our audience, gonna appreciate. Where can people find you online to learn more about you and the Warriors Code?
I'm at frankshamrock.com, and then I am at Frank Shamrock everywhere else.
It's amazing. Everyone check out Frank's documentary as well on YouTube. I learned so much today, Frank. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Yeah, I enjoyed it very much.
A lot of gratitude for listening to Fika with Rice. I really mean that. If you like the show, I would love if you can leave us a 5-star review, whatever you're listening to your podcast. It helps us so much to get the word out there to other listeners. If you have any questions or any feedback, I would love to hear from you. I'm just a DM away on Instagram or TikTok at Freddie van Huynh. So looking forward to hearing from you guys. Thank you so much.
Let's go!